The rain fell softly on the thick alien jungle of planet Varten, where trees glowed faintly like giant lanterns in the mist. The ground was covered with strange purple moss that moved slightly, breathing in rhythm with the air. Locals called this place the Green Grave, and they warned travelers never to enter after sunset. They said the forest could swallow people whole, and no one who went too far ever came back. But Ethan Cole, a human biologist and explorer, didn't believe in ghost stories. He came here to study new plant life that could help cure human diseases. His boots sank into the wet soil as he walked deeper into the glowing woods, holding his scanner in one hand and his flashlight in the other. The jungle whispered around him. It wasn't just wind, it sounded like distant crying, soft and broken. He froze for a moment and listened. It was faint but real. He whispered to himself, "That can't be an animal." He followed the sound. His heart began to beat faster as the crying grew louder. The path ahead was overgrown with vines as thick as his arms. They twisted around each other, glistening with slime. The air smelled sweet but heavy, almost dizzying. He waved away glowing insects that buzzed near his face. The crying stopped suddenly. The jungle went silent. Too silent, Ethan lifted his flashlight. It caught something pale between the vines. For a second he thought it was just a reflection. Then he saw it clearly. It was a girl. Her skin was light blue with silver markings that shimmered under the rain. She had long white hair tangled with leaves and mud. Her clothes were torn and strange glowing symbols were marked on her arms. She looked terrified, struggling weakly as thick vines wrapped around her legs and waist, pulling her toward a huge dark shape in the ground. Ethan couldn't move. His breath stopped. The vines were dragging her toward a wide pit, and at its center was a monstrous plant like a giant flower with teeth. Its petals were blood red, lined with sharp thorns, and its mouth opened slowly, dripping with acid. The girl screamed as she was lifted toward the gaping mouth. Ethan dropped his scanner and ran forward without thinking. "Hold on," he shouted. His boots splashed through mud as he pulled out his plasma knife. The vines hissed and moved like snakes, trying to block his way. He sliced one. It shrieked, spraying glowing green sap that burned his arm. He winced in pain but didn't stop. "Don't give up," he yelled to her. She looked at him with wide silver eyes full of fear. For a brief second, their eyes met, human and alien, and something inside him felt strange, like he had known her before. Then, with a horrible sound, the plant swallowed her whole. The petals closed around her body and everything went quiet again. Only the rain fell, tapping softly on the wet ground. Ethan stood frozen, shaking, staring at the spot where she had vanished. "No," he whispered. "She's not gone." He grabbed his scanner and pointed it toward the plant. The screen flickered and showed a weak life signal still moving inside. His heart jumped. She was still alive somehow. The plant's body pulsed like a giant heartbeat. Each beat made the ground tremble slightly. He realized it was alive in a way he didn't understand. Half creature, half vegetation. And it didn't just eat, it absorbed. If he didn't act soon, she would become part of it. Ethan took a deep breath. His hands shook, but his eyes were filled with determination. "You saved me once, life," he muttered to himself. "Now it's my turn to save someone." He turned on the plasma cutter from his pack. The blade glowed blue, humming softly in the dark. Steam rose from the ground around him as he stepped closer to the giant plant. Vines began to move again, slowly curling toward him like fingers reaching for prey. He cut one vine. It screamed again, a sound like metal grinding against glass. The forest seemed to react, whispering louder, the glowing plants trembling around him. His suit sensors warned of toxic air, but he didn't care. He pressed forward, slicing one vine after another, burning his hands, slipping on wet roots. Suddenly, a thick tendril shot from behind, wrapping around his leg. He fell hard, his knife sliding out of reach. The vine tightened, dragging him toward the giant flower's mouth. His hands clawed at the mud as he shouted in frustration. He reached for his knife, stretching his arm until his shoulder screamed in pain. Finally, his fingers touched it. With a burst of strength, he grabbed the knife and slashed the vine apart. It split open, spraying more acid. He rolled away, coughing, then stood again, shaking. His suit was torn, his arm burned, but his eyes were fierce. He placed his palm on the plant's surface. It was warm and pulsing like living flesh. He could almost hear something inside. A heartbeat, a muffled sound, and maybe even a soft cry. "She's still in there," he whispered. "I'm not leaving." Lightning flashed above, lighting up the forest. The glow reflected off the massive plant, showing its full size. It was bigger than a house, its roots spread across the entire clearing. Ethan realized what he was facing, but fear no longer mattered. He tightened his gloves, gripped his plasma knife again, and began to cut into the monster's surface. Acid hissed, smoke rose, and the plant screamed, shaking the ground. The jungle whispered again, louder now, almost like warning voices, but Ethan didn't stop. He kept cutting deeper and deeper, searching for the girl trapped inside, hoping he wasn't too late. The forest of Vartan held its breath, and somewhere beneath the layers of flesh and vines, a faint heartbeat answered. The air around Ethan turned heavy, thick with the smell of burning sap and poison. Every breath stung his lungs, but he didn't stop cutting through the plant's pulsing body. Each slice of his plasma knife released steam in a low, haunting cry, as if the jungle itself was alive and angry. Acid hissed on the ground, eating through the moss and glowing roots. He kept glancing at his scanner. The life signal inside the plant was weak but steady. The alien girl was still alive, somehow still fighting. That thought gave him strength. He muttered to himself, "Hold on, I'm coming for you." The creature suddenly twitched. Its massive petals shuddered, opening slightly like a mouth gasping for air. From the dark hole inside, a burst of thick green mist shot out, nearly knocking Ethan backward. The mist burned his eyes. He covered his face, coughing, blinking through the sting. His vision blurred, but he didn't give up. He pressed the blade against the thick membrane again, this time deeper. The sound was like tearing meat. A hot, sticky liquid poured over his hands, glowing faintly under the rain. Inside the plant something moved, a shadow, a faint outline of a body. He could hear a heartbeat now, slow, weak, but real. Suddenly his radio buzzed. "Ethan, come in."
You're off route.
"Get out of there now!" It was his partner, Dr. Lang, calling from their base, but Ethan ignored it. He couldn't leave. He didn't even answer. He just kept cutting. The jungle around him began to move. Vines slithered down from the trees, wrapping around branches, twitching like they were alive. The ground beneath his boots pulsed once, twice, then again. It was like standing on top of something breathing. Ethan realized with horror, it wasn't just one plant. It was all connected. The forest was one living organism, and he had just made it angry. A sharp vine shot out from the ground, nearly impaling him. He rolled aside as it missed by inches, slamming into the soil with a hiss. More vines burst out around him, twisting in the air like hungry snakes. He grabbed a canister from his pack and hurled it at them. The explosion sent fire scattering across the vines, burning them black. The air filled with the smell of smoke and sap. The giant flower screamed, a loud, echoing roar that shook the ground. Ethan's ears rang. He stumbled back, gripping his knife, and shouted, "You're not taking her!" He plunged the blade deep into the plant's side. This time the blade hit something solid. He cut again, wider this time, forcing the wound open. A small hand slipped out, blue and trembling. His heart skipped. She was there. "Got you," he whispered. He dropped the knife and pulled at the torn plant tissue with his bare hands. Acid burned his skin, but he didn't care. He tore through layers of flesh until the girl's face appeared, covered in sap, her silver eyes half closed. Her body was limp, her breathing weak. Ethan carefully lifted her out, holding her against his chest. "You're safe now," he said, though he wasn't sure if she could hear him. She coughed weakly, a soft sound like wind through leaves. Her lips moved slightly, but no words came out. Then her eyelids fluttered open and her gaze met his. For a brief moment, everything around them disappeared. The fire, the noise, the danger. There was only her and him. But then the jungle moved again. Roots broke through the ground around them, forming a ring. The massive plant behind him began to grow back, healing itself. The vines that had been cut started twisting together again, faster and faster. The earth trembled beneath his feet. Ethan knew he couldn't fight the entire forest. He looked at the girl, too weak to walk, barely breathing. He had to get her out of there now. He grabbed his bag, lifted her into his arms, and started running. The jungle screamed. Vines whipped through the air like lashes, snapping at his legs. He ducked, jumped, rolled, doing everything to keep her safe. The glowing mist turned thicker, almost solid, choking the air. He coughed hard, his lungs burning. Behind him, the sound of cracking roots grew louder. The plant wasn't dying, it was chasing. He turned on his suit's thermal visor. The display lit up with heat signatures. Every tree, every flower, every vine glowed red. All of them were moving toward him. He was inside a living trap. "Come on," he said to himself. "Just a little more." Up ahead, he saw a patch of light breaking through the canopy. An exit. He ran faster, clutching the girl tightly. A vine struck him from behind, knocking his helmet halfway off. He stumbled but didn't stop. Another vine lashed out, wrapping around his arm. He twisted, slashed it with his knife, and kept going. Finally, he burst through the trees and fell onto a slope covered in glowing grass. The jungle stopped at the edge as if it couldn't leave its territory. Ethan rolled onto his back, gasping for breath. The girl lay beside him, still breathing, her silver eyes flickering faintly under the moonlight. He looked back at the forest. The trees stood still again, whispering softly in the wind. The huge flower was gone, but its echo remained in the air, a deep, slow pulse that sounded like the heartbeat of something ancient and waiting. Ethan reached for his scanner. The life signal was stable now. He smiled weakly. "You're safe," he said softly. But as he looked closer, he noticed something strange on her arm. A glowing mark, the same color as the plant's core, pulsing faintly beneath her skin. Ethan frowned. "What are you?" he whispered. The alien girl stirred slightly and whispered one word in a soft, trembling voice, "Run!" And before Ethan could ask why, the ground beneath them began to move again. The night air trembled with strange energy as Ethan held the alien girl close. Her breathing was shallow, her skin cold and damp from the plant's acid. Around them, the glowing forest pulsed softly like it was watching. The ground under his boots felt alive, breathing in and out as if the entire jungle shared one slow heartbeat. Ethan placed her gently on the ground, removing his damaged gloves. His hands were raw and burned, but he didn't care. He tore open a small med pack from his suit and sprayed neutralizer foam over her skin to stop the acid's effect. The foam sizzled and turned blue, sealing the burns. Her body twitched slightly, but she didn't wake. He leaned close and said softly, "You're safe now, okay? You're safe." Lightning flashed across the purple clouds above. The jungle answered with a deep, low sound, like something large shifting beneath the soil. Ethan looked up. Vines moved in the distance, not by wind, but by will. They were retreating. For now, he checked his scanner again. Her vitals were improving, weak but steady. She was alive. He let out a long sigh of relief. But then his eyes caught something strange. Her pulse pattern wasn't human. Each beat gave off a faint energy reading, something organic yet electric, like a plant's biofrequency mixed with life. He frowned, whispering, "You're connected to this place, aren't you?" Her eyelids fluttered. Slowly, her silver eyes opened, dim but shining like starlight. She looked at him, confused and afraid. When she spoke, her voice was soft, broken, barely more than a whisper. "Why? Did you save me?" Ethan froze. Her accent was strange, each word slow, careful. He wasn't sure if she understood what she was saying, but the question felt heavy. He smiled faintly and replied, "Because you needed help." She blinked at him, trying to sit up, but her arms trembled too much. He helped her, placing a blanket over her shoulders. She looked down, touching her arm where the plant's mark glowed faintly beneath her skin. Her eyes widened in fear. "It's still inside me," she whispered. "It doesn't let go." Ethan didn't understand. "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, the ground shivered again. A small crack appeared near them, glowing green from inside. The light pulsed in rhythm with the mark on her arm. Ethan stepped back, pulling her with him. "We have to move," he said quickly. He lifted her again and stumbled through the glowing foliage. The rain had stopped, but the mist was thick now, swirling like smoke. Each step he took made the vines around them twitch. It felt as if the jungle could sense her presence, like it wanted her back. After a long climb, he found a dry cave near a rock ridge. He carried her inside, lit a small heat lamp, and sealed the entrance with metal sheets from his pack. The glow outside dimmed, muffled by the rocks. For the first time, there was quiet. He set her down gently and sat nearby, watching as she stared into the light. Her face was delicate but strong, with faint silver veins under her skin that shimmered when she moved. She looked so human and yet not. Finally, she spoke again, her voice a little clearer. "My name is Lirena," Ethan nodded. "I'm Ethan Cole, explorer from Earth." Her eyes widened at the word Earth. She tilted her head slightly. "Human," she whispered. "I've heard of your kind. They said you were all gone." Ethan smiled tiredly. "Not yet." For a long moment, neither spoke. The jungle's hum outside was distant, like a storm far away. Then Lyrena's expression changed. Sad, almost guilty. That plant, she said slowly. It wasn't supposed to exist anymore. My people destroyed it long ago. Ethan leaned forward. Then how did it come back? She hesitated. Her fingers trembled as she looked at the glowing mark on her arm. Because of me, she whispered. I studied the old seeds. I thought I could heal them, make them harmless. I was wrong. It grew. And it learned. It started calling through the roots. The others ran. I stayed. Her eyes filled with tears. It wanted to consume everything again, and I couldn't stop it. Ethan felt a chill down his spine. So it's intelligent? She nodded weakly. It doesn't just eat flesh. It absorbs memories, thoughts. It knows I tried to kill it. That's why it won't stop. I'm its link to survive. Ethan looked at her arm, where the mark pulsed brighter, in perfect sync with the faint tremor outside. It's tracking you, he said quietly. Through that mark, Lyrena lowered her head. Yes, it never forgets what it's eaten. Silence filled the cave. Only the faint sound of dripping water echoed around them. Ethan looked at her, tired, broken, yet still alive. He saw strength in her even through the fear. He stood up, checked his plasma cutter, and said, Then we'll find a way to cut that connection. You're not dying here, not like the others. Lyrena looked up at him, her eyes soft but shining with tears. You don't even know me, she said quietly. Ethan smiled faintly. I didn't have to. Sometimes saving one life is the only thing that makes sense. She looked away, whispering, Humans, you always risk everything. Outside, thunder rolled again. The vines at the cave's mouth shifted slightly as if listening. The mark on her arm flared brighter for a moment and then dimmed again. Neither of them spoke. But deep under the ground, far below their feet, something enormous stirred, roots twisting, rising, searching, and far away in the jungle. The mother plant opened its eyes. The first light of dawn touched the jungle of Vartan, but it brought no peace. Mist hung low, and every leaf seemed to whisper the same warning, leave before it's too late. Inside the rocky cave, Ethan sat near the alien girl, watching her sleep. The glowing mark on her arm still pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat trying to sync with the jungle outside. He hadn't slept. His eyes were red, his mind racing with questions. Why had that thing kept her alive inside it? Why did it react when he saved her? And most of all, why did the entire forest seem alive, like one vast creature? When Lyrena finally stirred, she winced in pain but managed a small smile. You didn't leave, she whispered. Ethan smiled faintly. Didn't plan to. Her silver eyes softened. Humans always say that. And then they run, he shook his head. Not this one. For a few moments, the cave was quiet except for the hum of the jungle outside. Then she sat up slowly, wrapping the blanket around her shoulders. You should know what you're dealing with, she said. Her voice was quiet but serious. That thing, the one that tried to eat me, it wasn't just a plant. It's part of something bigger, something ancient. Ethan leaned closer. Tell me. Lyrena took a deep breath. Long before my people came to this planet, the mother plant ruled this world. It covered continents, devouring anything that moved. It didn't kill for hunger. It killed to grow. When the Galaxy War came, my ancestors used its biology to make living weapons. They learned how to control it. Or they thought they did, Ethan frowned. They turned it into a weapon? She nodded. Yes, it was meant to protect colonies, plants that could destroy enemies and repair themselves. But the mother plant evolved. It broke free from our control. It began consuming everything, even our soldiers. Her eyes grew darker as she spoke, voice shaking. When the war ended, they burned the jungles, destroyed the seeds, and buried what was left. But one survived. The seed I found. Ethan stared at her. You brought it back? I thought it was dead, she cried softly. I was young, a researcher. I only wanted to learn from it, to create healing roots that could repair wounds. But when I grew it in my lab, it woke up. It remembered everything. It spread through the soil faster than fire. It called to the old roots buried deep underground. Ethan rubbed his forehead. So the jungle is one giant living organism? Yes, she whispered. It's all connected through a root network, the green grave, that's what your people call it. But it's not just a grave. It's alive and it wants me back. It marked me when it swallowed me. She looked down at her glowing arm. Now I'm part of it. Ethan felt his chest tighten. If it's linked to you, maybe we can use that. She looked at him sharply. You want to fight it? You can't fight something that has no mind, no body. It's everywhere. It listens through the soil, it sees through the leaves. Ethan didn't answer. He walked to the cave's mouth and stared at the jungle below. It looked peaceful under the pale morning light, birds flying, mist drifting, but he could feel the pulse beneath it, slow and heavy, like the breathing of a beast waiting for prey. "We can't stay here," he said finally. "If it's tracking you, it already knows where we are." Lyrina lowered her head. "It always knows." He turned to her, determined. "Then we'll go to it first." She blinked in disbelief. "Go to it, you'd walk into the heart of the green grave. If it's growing from one place, the root cluster, the core, whatever you call it, we destroy that, right?" Her voice trembled. "It's suicide." "Maybe," Ethan said, strapping his plasma knife to his belt. "But it's better than waiting to be eaten." Lyrina stared at him, her eyes wide, full of fear and something else. Hope. He offered her his hand. "You said it wants you alive. So we use that. We go where it's strongest and I burn it from the inside out." She hesitated, then slowly took his hand. Her skin was cool, smooth, almost electric. "If we fail," she whispered, "there will be no jungle left." "Only hunger," Ethan smiled faintly. "Then we better not fail." They packed what little they had, 2 oxygen cells, 3 thermal grenades, and 1 broken scanner. As they stepped outside, the wind carried the jungle's faint whisper again. The trees seemed to lean toward them, vines shifting as if curious. The ground trembled beneath each step. The path ahead was dark and covered in glowing roots that pulsed softly under their boots. The jungle seemed endless. Every shadow looked alive, every flower turned its head to follow them. Hours later, they reached a clearing. In the middle stood a crater filled with green mist. From its center rose a giant shape like a heart made of roots and bones beating slowly. The ground around it shimmered with the same glow as Lyrina's arm. Ethan's breath caught. "That's it, isn't it?" She nodded silently. The mother. The heart opened slightly, and a deep, slow voice echoed through their minds, not through sound but through thought. "Welcome home, child." Lyrina froze, eyes wide with horror. The mark on her arm blazed bright green. Ethan stepped in front of her, gripping his plasma cutter tight. The jungle trembled, vines rising like an army of serpents. The heart pulsed faster, and the ground beneath them split open, glowing from within. Ethan shouted, "Run!" But Lyrina didn't move. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered, "It doesn't want me dead, Ethan. It wants me back." And the ground swallowed them whole. The ground swallowed them in a rush of light and noise, and Ethan felt weightless for a moment before crashing into a thick, warm surface that pulsed beneath him. The air was humid and full of a sickly sweet scent that made his stomach turn. Around him, glowing green walls curved like veins, throbbing with rhythm, alive, breathing, wet. He realized with horror they were inside the mother plant. Lyrina gasped beside him, clutching her arm. The glowing mark on her skin was now burning bright, threads of green light crawling up toward her neck. "It's calling me," she whispered weakly. "It wants me to merge." Ethan pulled her away from the pulsing wall. "No one's merging with anything," he said through gritted teeth. "We'll find a way out." He lit a flare. The red glow painted the walls with trembling shadows. Strange shapes moved behind the membrane. Faces, hands, bones half absorbed into the flesh. The plant had been feeding for centuries, and every creature it consumed left a memory imprinted inside its body. It was a graveyard of the living. Suddenly, the floor shifted beneath their feet, forming a slope that dragged them forward. Ethan grabbed Lyrina's hand as they slid toward a deep, glowing pit at the center of the chamber. The light inside the pit was blinding, and a deep voice echoed in their heads, not through sound but thought. "Child of the root, return to me." Lyrina clutched her head and screamed. Ethan pulled her closer. "Fight it," he shouted. "Don't listen." She shook her head, eyes wide with terror. "I can't." "It's in my blood." The ground beneath them began to pulse faster, like a giant heart beating out of control. A massive vine burst from the floor, wrapping around Lyrina's waist and dragging her toward the pit. Ethan slashed at it with his plasma knife. Green sap sprayed everywhere, sizzling as it hit the ground. He cut again, roaring with effort, and the vine snapped. But more tendrils rose from the walls, hundreds of them, twisting toward them like hungry serpents. Ethan fired his blaster into the walls. Each shot burned holes through the flesh, but the wounds closed seconds later. The jungle was healing itself faster than he could hurt it. The voice returned, deeper, colder. "You cannot fight life itself. Ethan shouted back. Then life's about to get burned. He grabbed a thermal grenade from his belt, pulled the pin and threw it into the pit. The explosion ripped through the chamber, shaking the entire structure. For a moment, everything went white. When the light faded, the floor cracked open, revealing tunnels filled with glowing green roots stretching in every direction, like a map of veins under the world. The mother plant's true body wasn't here. This was just one node. The real core was far below. Lyrina coughed, trembling. You can't kill it like this. It spread through the whole planet. We have to reach the main root, the heart core. Then that's where we're going, Ethan said firmly. She looked at him with disbelief. You don't understand. The core isn't just roots and cells. It's intelligent. It remembers everything it's consumed. It remembers me. Ethan gripped her shoulders gently. Then we'll make it remember what we do next. The tunnel walls shifted, forming a spiraling path downward. The air grew thicker, filled with glowing spores that floated like snow. Lyrina walked ahead, her mark lighting the way. Every step she took made the roots tremble slightly, as if the jungle recognized her. Ethan followed closely, weapon ready. As they descended, faces began to appear on the walls, echoes of people, human and alien alike. Their eyes opened and followed them, mouths moving soundlessly. Lyrina looked away, her voice shaking. It shows what it's taken. Every mind, every memory, it keeps them all. Ethan clenched his fists. Then it's time to give it something new to remember. At last they reached a vast underground cavern. In the center hung a massive glowing heart, suspended by thousands of roots beating with light. The air vibrated with its rhythm. Each pulse sent a wave of energy through the tunnels, making the walls shimmer. Lyrina's eyes widened. The core, she whispered. The deep voice returned, louder than before, echoing in both their minds. You cannot destroy me, daughter of error. You are my seed, my legacy. Merge and live forever. Lyrina screamed as the light from her mark spread over her entire body. Vines shot forward, wrapping around her arms and legs. She struggled, but they lifted her off the ground. Ethan rushed forward, slicing through the vines, shouting her name. The mother plant roared, shaking the cavern. Roots slammed down, blocking his path. He dodged one, then another, rolling beneath a swinging vine. He fired his plasma cutter into the glowing heart. It sizzled but didn't break. The heat only made it pulse faster. Lyrina cried out, "Stop! It feeds on energy." Ethan froze. The heart pulsed stronger, brighter, absorbing every blast he'd fired. The voice laughed inside his mind. Your fire gives me strength, human. He lowered his weapon, breathing hard. His mind raced. Then he remembered the grenades in his pack, the ones powered by compressed plasma fuel. He looked up at Lyrina, vines closing around her face. Can you still feel where it's weakest? She gasped. Below the heart, the roots that hold it. Burn those. Ethan nodded and jumped into the pit below. The air was hot and thick, and the roots glowed like molten metal. He planted the grenades in a circle and climbed back up, pulling Lyrina free as he shouted, "Now!" The explosion ripped through the core, tearing roots apart. The heart screamed, a sound like 1,000 dying voices. Green fire filled the cavern and the ground began to collapse. Ethan held Lyrina as the floor gave way beneath them, both falling into the burning light. The last thing he heard before blacking out was her voice, faint but determined. Ethan, it's not dead yet, the world burned green. The roar of the explosion still echoed in Ethan's ears as he slowly opened his eyes. Smoke filled the air, glowing faintly from the fire spreading through the root tunnels. The ground was broken, oozing sap that hissed like acid when it touched the air. Every surface pulsed faintly, alive, dying, fighting to heal itself. He turned his head and saw Lyrina lying beside him. Her skin shimmered with faint light, the mark on her arm now blazing like molten metal. She was breathing, but her body trembled with pain. Ethan crawled toward her, coughing through the thick smoke. Lyrina, he whispered, shaking her shoulder. Stay with me. Her eyes opened slowly. You did it, she breathed weakly. Ethan looked around. The heart chamber had collapsed, and what was left of the mother plant's core was burning, blackening under waves of green fire. We hit it hard, he said. But it's still alive. I can feel it, Lyrina nodded faintly. It's trying to heal. The roots above. They'll regrow. Unless we reach the source. The source. Ethan frowned. She looked up weakly. Every root, every tendril leads to one place. The original seed. Deep below. If we destroy that, it ends. But her voice broke off. The mark on her arm spread further, crawling up her neck and glowing brighter with each heartbeat. Ethan realized the horrible truth: she was still connected. The mother plant was pulling her back, draining her strength, using her to rebuild itself. He took her hand. "Then we'll cut that connection, together." She gave a sad smile. "You can't, Ethan, it's inside me. The moment you destroy the source, it will try to live through me." He shook his head. "Then I'll stop it before that happens." Before she could answer, the ground shook violently. The air filled with a deep rhythmic sound, thump, 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 the heartbeat of something enormous awakening. From the shattered walls, hundreds of glowing vines began to slither down, writhing like living fire. The jungle was coming alive again. Ethan grabbed his weapon, helping Lyrina stand. "We're not done yet." They ran through a tunnel half filled with fire and smoke. The walls rippled, roots cracking and sealing again like muscle tissue trying to close a wound. Ethan shot at them, carving a path forward while shielding Lyrina with his body. Suddenly the voice returned, deep and cold, echoing through the ground. "You cannot destroy what feeds the stars." "I am life itself," Ethan shouted back. "You're not life, you're hunger." The vines ahead burst open, revealing a massive pit glowing with green light. Below, the source pulsed, a sphere the size of a human chest, suspended in roots like veins. It looked almost beautiful, pure and radiant, but its rhythm was wrong, fast, greedy, endless. Lyrina fell to her knees. "That's it. The first seed." Ethan reached for a grenade, but she grabbed his wrist. Her voice was trembling, but her eyes were firm. "If you destroy it while I live, it will transfer into me. You'll just create another mother." He froze. "Then what are you saying?" She smiled sadly, tears glistening in her eyes. "I have to go with it. I started this. I'll finish it." "No," Ethan said firmly, shaking his head. "We'll find another way. There's always another way." She placed a glowing hand on his cheek. "Humans always believe that. That's why the universe remembers you." Before he could react, she stepped forward, standing at the edge of the pit. The light from her body brightened, blending with the source's glow. Her voice echoed softly, almost like a prayer. "It began with me. Let it end with me," Ethan shouted. "Lyrina, stop," and tried to reach her, but the vines shot up, forming a barrier of living thorns. He sliced at them wildly, screaming her name. She looked back one last time, her silver eyes filled with calm. "You gave me something it could never understand, Ethan," she whispered. "Choice." Then she stepped into the pit. The moment her body touched the source, the entire cavern erupted in light. The vines screamed, twisting violently, trying to pull her apart. Ethan shielded his face as a storm of energy exploded outward, tearing the roots from the ground. The air burned green, the heat searing his skin even through his armor. Through the blinding light, he saw her one last time, her body dissolving into streams of light, merging with the source, fighting it from within. The voice of the mother plant shrieked in agony, echoing across the planet. "No, you are mine." The explosion that followed shook the world. The jungle above burst into flames, trees cracking, roots burning from the inside out. The entire green grave screamed as it died. When the light faded, Ethan lay on the scorched ground, the air still glowing faintly. Around him, silence. No vines, no whispering, no pulse, just stillness. The jungle was gone. He dragged himself to his knees, coughing, calling her name, but there was no answer. Only the faint glow of ashes rising in the air, tiny green sparks drifting upward like stars. He looked toward the sky and whispered, "You did it, Lyrina. You saved them all." A soft breeze passed over him, carrying a faint whisper through the air. For a moment he could swear he heard her voice, gentle and distant. "Thank you, human." And then, even the wind fell silent. Smoke hung like ghosts over the silent ruins of the jungle, drifting between the shattered trees. The once living forest of Vartan was now nothing more than blackened earth and smoldering vines. Ethan stood in the middle of the ashes, his uniform torn, his hands burned, staring at the horizon where green fire still flickered faintly. The mother plant was gone, burned from the world, but so was Lyrina. The wind blew softly, carrying the faint scent of sap and smoke. Every step Ethan took crunched against the brittle remains of leaves that used to breathe, move, and whisper. The silence felt wrong. For days, this jungle had been alive, a monster that hunted, breathed, and screamed. Now it was quiet, peaceful but heavy. He stopped beside a crater where the heart core had once pulsed. The ground there still glowed faintly under the ash. He knelt and brushed the soot away with his hand. Beneath it, a small blue crystal shimmered, smooth and warm to the touch. It pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. "Lirena," he whispered. For a moment he thought he heard a soft voice in the wind, a whisper too gentle to be real. He closed his eyes and listened. "You kept your promise." Human, his breath caught. He opened his eyes, but there was nothing around him. Only the empty jungle and the faint blue glow in his hand. He sat there for a long time, staring at the crystal. It wasn't just light. It was alive, faint but real. Her presence, her essence. Somehow she had survived. Not as flesh, but as something pure, something free. Days passed. Ethan built a small camp on the edge of the burned forest, near a stream that had somehow remained clear. He studied the crystal every night, running scans that made no sense. The readings were strange, neither biological nor mechanical. It emitted a frequency identical to the mother plant's once living roots, but softer, harmonic instead of violent. Life, not hunger. On the 5th night, something unexpected happened. The crystal began to hum. Ethan froze. He placed it on the ground, and a faint green sprout grew from the soil beneath it, a single delicate stem with a blue petal at its tip. He stared in awe. The jungle was gone, but this was new, different, peaceful. He smiled faintly, whispering, "You made something better, didn't you?" The wind carried a gentle, familiar voice again. "No more pain, only life." He sat beside the little plant for hours, remembering everything, the screams, the fire, the way she looked at him before stepping into the light. He had seen courage before, but never like hers. She wasn't human, yet she had done something deeply human. She had sacrificed everything for others. A week later, rescue ships from the colonial outpost finally arrived. The team found Ethan standing beside a patch of new growth spreading across the crater, blue flowers blooming in the ashes. "Ethan Cole?" one of the officers called. "You're alive?" He nodded slowly. "I guess so." They looked around, confused. "What happened here?" "The entire biosphere's been wiped out, but what's that?" The officer pointed to the blue field. Ethan smiled. "A beginning." They took him aboard the transport, but he kept the crystal with him. Even as the ship rose above the clouds, he looked down through the window at the patch of blue spreading wider, glowing like stars scattered across the burned jungle. That night, as the stars filled the sky, he placed the crystal on the ship's console and whispered, "You didn't die, Lirena. You changed the world." The crystal glowed softly in response. Years passed. Ethan returned to Earth as an old man, retired but still haunted by the memory of that alien world. He kept the blue crystal on his desk inside a small glass case. Scientists tried to study it, but none could explain how it pulsed with life centuries after being removed from its planet. They called it the seed of Varten, but to Ethan it was something else entirely. One evening under Earth's sunset sky, he took the crystal outside and buried it in his garden. He smiled faintly as he patted the soil. "You deserve sunlight," he said softly. Weeks later, when spring came, a single blue flower bloomed in that spot, its petals glowing faintly under the moonlight. And that night, when the wind rustled the leaves, Ethan swore he heard her voice again. Distant but warm, "Thank you for saving me." He looked up at the stars where Varten once shone faintly in the sky and whispered back, "No, Lirena, you saved us all." As the breeze carried her voice into the night, the flower bent gently toward the light, its petals shining brighter, as if bowing to the stars. And for the first time since that terrible day, the jungle of Varten was alive again, not as a monster, but as a promise beneath the stars.